All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, back from vacation. Maybe I should have stayed on vacation. That was a much happier time than today. Last Sunday, I was driving back from Jackson, Wyoming, crossing over the Sierras, enjoying the wonderful vistas of the great American Wild Wild West. This Sunday, not so much enjoying anything at the moment. Chelsea 1, Tottenham Hotspur 3. First time since most of us were born. Sadly, not me. I was about, I want to say 8 years old, almost 8, when Spurs last won at Stamford Bridge. That was before this thing called the Premier League. Yeah. So Spurs won at Stamford Bridge for the first time since 1990. A certain Gary Lineker was the last person, I believe, to score in a winning game for Spurs at the Bridge. Now that honor goes to Dele Alli, who, of course, once again hit a couple goals against us, even though he barely did anything throughout the whole game. Conte will be sacked in a few days. That's, I could see that being a possibility. The problem is we have 7 games left, plus at least one more in the FA Cup. At this point, you might as well see the season out with him, I think. Clearly, finishing 5th after, or even 6th, depending on how badly we do with the remaining few games, is not a good way to keep your job, regardless of any other situation happening around you. So I think we can probably, put that nail in that coffin for the summer. I don't think he's going to get sacked now. I mean, he didn't get sacked after the City loss or the United loss or the Barcelona elimination. So at this point, it's all water under the bridge, really. But I think we can basically kiss the Champions League goodbye for next season. I mean, technically, we're not out of it. It's 8 points with 7 games left. It would require Spurs to lose a fair amount. Either them or Liverpool, I suppose, could also do a collapse. But maybe if we tank well enough, we even drop out of the Europa League, so we don't have to deal with that nonsense next season. But at the moment, looks like we're back in the Europa for the second time in, the last time we were there was 2013. After dropping out of the Champions League group stages. So that should be exciting. We get to look forward to visiting new places that we probably haven't gone to, far off lands, probably some former Soviet republics who like to play in the Europa League a lot, or some minor towns. Ram says Europa League means youth. Youth. YOO or 00F. There you go. The youth. Ideally, yes, that's what it should mean. As we saw in 2013, that's not necessarily the case. But the Europa League does add a lot of games to the schedule. And depending on who the coach is next season, I suppose that's the silver lining. And really, as we look at the state of the squad, it is full of younger players who definitely need to be playing in big games and in challenging situations. Somebody like Christensen, who certainly once again had his fair share of errors today, unfortunately. It's something that will only be ironed out with experience and game time and playing in meaningful games. So it'll be a good learning experience for Christensen. There's plenty of other players in the squad And obviously, we can't get rid of all these players, even though you might want to. If you do a browse on Twitter at any given moment, I think you can find tweets to get rid of just about every player, possibly except Conte. I think he might be the only player who maybe Azpilicueta. Everybody loves Dave, but maybe outside of those two players, certainly an argument could be made to get rid of every player. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that's not how you change things. The change comes from the top, and that is new manager probably. But first and foremost, Chelsea need to sort out the board situation with the director of football or whoever comes in to help Granovskaya if she's taking over that role. If we won the FA Cup, would we be qualified for the Champions League? I don't think that's how it works anymore. The Champions League, they changed the regulations earlier this season where it's the top four in the league automatically go in. So if you finish fourth, you no longer have to go through the qualifier or the third round qualifier, but you automatically go to the group stages from England. So I think FA Cup doesn't matter anymore for Champions League qualifications. It matters for Europa, I think. So if we win the FA Cup and say finish 7th, you'd also qualify for the Europa League. But I don't think we're going to finish lower than 6th, even if we try our best. I think we're finishing in the Europa League positions. I think it hurts and it's hard to probably admit, but I think this is the level of the squad for this season. Joseph Paul says, "I'm crying into my ham right now." Happy Easter, yeah. It's a good way to start your Resurrection Sunday. Have some ham and some tears. But I think if this game kind of confirms that the level of Chelsea this season is 5th place, maybe 6th place, and the way the game went kind of describes. Kind of sums up really the season. We played. I thought we played pretty well, and certainly first half was very good, and even in the second half, Chelsea looked well in control. And then end of the first half, one mistake, and Eriksen produces this amazing shot that some people blame on Caballero. I thought it was a rather unique and unexpected shot. The way it flew and dipped at the end, Maybe Courtois saves it, maybe he doesn't. It doesn't really matter. The error for that goal really doesn't necessarily lie on the goalkeeper. It lies on the giveaway from Moses. It lies from the rest of the team switching off and thinking it's the end of the first half already. In our Slack, one of the guys was saying that the goal reminded him of Liverpool scoring. Coutinho was it? With the final shot of the first half a couple of years ago when they won 3-1 at the Bridge. There you go. Sometimes history echoes. So it was very similar to that. Chelsea had the better of the first half, and yet it was just 1-1 at the half. And then, despite that setback, I thought Chelsea played pretty well to start the second half. Once again, several chances that went wasted. If we look at finishing statistics compared to the last two seasons, Chelsea are taking basically as many shots as they were last season, but scoring a significantly fewer amount of goals. You gotta take advantage of your chances. Chelsea didn't. Defensive breakdowns happened, and Dele Alli scored twice in like 5 minutes. Which these groups of goals conceded also seems to be one of the themes of the features of the season. Chelsea kind of not being able to recover quickly from setbacks and conceding another goal that kind of breaks the back. So yeah, it's. Now we are the third London team. I think we're still just second. We're not gonna be the top team, but the London teams this season are not seem to be lagging a little further behind the northern teams. Obviously, top two are both Manchester and Liverpool, sitting third and looking pretty good right now. Spurs are looking good for fourth place, and then it's down to us or Arsenal for fifth. So I think we're still second in London for whatever that's worth. But it doesn't really matter how high you're up in London if we're outside of the top four. Knuckleball, says Jean Paul. Yeah, I don't know if it was the Ericsson shot. I don't know if it was really a knuckler, but it died. Seemed to just basically die. If you're familiar with baseball or whatever, like a changeup or a knuckleball, really. I mean, it had a decent flight pattern, but it seemed to dip far more than anyone expected, and then it glanced off even off the bottom of the crossbar. So, maybe if I don't know. It's easy to blame Caballero because now we know how the ball flew in, and I mean he's not a super tall goalkeeper, but certainly he can jump up to the crossbar or above it, so he should be able to save it. But he clearly wasn't expecting the dip at the end, and I'm not so sure anybody else was, because everybody was, when that ball went in, everybody did the usual, oh my god, what an amazing shot it was, and then they looked at replays and like, oh well, maybe Caballero should have saved it. I mean, yeah, of course on replay maybe you should have saved it, but at the time, everybody at live time, as Ray Hudson likes to say, everybody was just amazed by the shot itself. So, I think if we're, I mean, it's blame. Everybody likes to play the blame game, but Caballero is a 36-year-old backup who ideally doesn't play in this game, but Courtois picked up his injury, so he couldn't play. And Caballero otherwise has done well enough for a backup, a 36-year-old backup who, in some people's eyes at times has even outplayed Courtois, although that possibly is a bit generous. Courtois certainly has the physical skills over Caballero, and it's just down to things like distribution and making good decisions. Conte out. Yeah, I mean, that's I'm not keeping an eye on Twitter, so maybe he's already been sacked. But I mean, that's the knee-jerk reaction. But I think, I fail to see what we gain by sacking Conte right now. I don't think he's going to, this game possibly confirms that he's definitely not here next season, whether he leaves by his own accord or we have to fire him and, pay the severance, whatever. It's not like we haven't done it before. Conte lasting 2 years is like twice the average tenure of a Chelsea manager. So he's already well above average, not just in terms of actually winning a title last season, but lasting more than 16 months or whatever the average is. Florian says he was at the bridge and can only tell you that his team has given up. Only Conte is giving his best. Yeah, and that's that's also a common criticism, I think, for Chelsea over the last few seasons. And it's one of those where if everything's going right, say last season or 3 years ago, it kind of snowballs into this unstoppable force. And Chelsea certainly walked the league in 15 with Mourinho, and fairly comfortable last season under Conte. But then when things go badly, such as this season, or more notably Mourinho's last season, kind of players just kind of be like, why should I really be trying that hard? We're kind of bad anyway. I'm not gonna be out here risking my neck for everything. That's one of those classic professional sport people things. You see this a lot in American sports, where there's no threat of relegation. If a team does badly in any given sport, they actually get rewarded with a higher draft pick. This is America, obviously. So players don't necessarily try very hard. Just put in just the amount of effort, just enough effort to get that new contract or whatever. But maybe not go the extra 120% as Conte used to say at the start of the season. That's what we need, and it's not something we got on a regular basis. Maybe you get 95%, and that's just in the Premier League these days. That's just not enough. The margins are too small. The teams are too good. A few years ago, Spurs were not this good. If you read our opposition preview from Rob, he was saying that this Spurs is basically the best team they've had since the 60s. And it's kind of hard to argue other than, they're not actually winning the title, which is a very Spurs thing to do because they've been very good over the last few years, but they didn't win any titles, which is funny. But they did win today, so it's a little bit harder to laugh at the moment. But yeah, Chelsea certainly have work to do. Starts from the top, as we were saying earlier. We know these players can be molded into winners. They can win things. Obviously, we have players like Fabregas and Hazard, Willian, Conte, players who are familiar with what it takes to win. But at the same rate, they're also familiar by knowing that they also know that maybe, this season you don't really necessarily need to put in that much effort anymore. Yeah. Christensen is not that good after all, says Cornelius. Christensen is 21, so young players will make mistakes. It's the double-edged sword. Everybody cries for Chelsea to play young players. When you play young players, especially in crucial positions like defense, when they make mistakes, it will stand out. Spurs played Davinson Sanchez as their 21-year-old defender, and he played well, but he also made a couple fairly crucial errors, including on Chelsea's goal. So it's you got to take the good with the bad when you play young players like Christensen. We've seen over the last few years what happens when we discard young players after a few mistakes or after a few less than impressive showings. We only have to look to De Bruyne at Manchester City, or Lukaku at Manchester United, or Mo Salah at Liverpool, who only leads the Premier League in scoring these days and equal Didier Drogba's record for most goals in a season scored by an African player. And there are still 7 games left for Salah to score, 20 more goals. So it's what Christensen needs is not necessarily criticism, but he obviously needs to know that he's made mistakes, which, based on his interviews, he does. What he needs is support and trust to play in games such as these, and Barcelona and Manchester United, and be given the opportunity to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, so that we can rely on him for the next decade or more. We say the narrative is that Christensen is finally the player since John Terry to make that leap from the youth team to first team starter. But when John Terry was 21 years old, he certainly wasn't flawless either. And you can certainly make an argument that even at 31 or 26 or 27, he was not flawless. Made plenty of mistakes, but he also, made up for that with plenty of other qualities. So, saying Christensen out or throwing Christensen away is not the answer. That would be probably the worst thing we could do at the moment. We don't have much to look forward to for the next 12 months, I don't think. Europa League is not exactly something that excites me, but the development of people like Christensen, Hudson-Odoi, who came on for the last few minutes today, Loftus-Cheek, if he comes back from Crystal Palace, take your pick. There's a lot of young talent in the system, a lot of young talent out on loan, and they have a chance to establish themselves as Chelsea rebuild for the next the next big push. I think players who are around 30 or over 30 are going to find themselves possibly being looked at very hard this summer. Somebody like Cahill, who's dropped out of the squad pretty solidly now. We can criticize Conte for many things, but he's dropped Cahill. Second straight season that the club captain has not played as much as one would have expected. David Luiz is probably on his way out. Fabregas, who else is out there? Pedro, maybe not Willian, although he wasn't exactly brilliant today. But, it's one game. You don't make decisions based on one game, but people who have not made as much impact this season, especially the older players, could definitely find themselves on the way out this summer. Again, kind of depends on who the coach is, but I think it'll depend on who the football leadership is, so to say, in the boardroom or at the executive level. Fabregas can't keep up with the likes of Dembele, Dyer, etc., says Irnes. Yeah, and I think Fabregas is one of those players who last season made a big impact on our season because he wasn't a starter. His role as a late sub last season for Matic or whoever, or one of the forwards to make it a three-man midfield was the way to ideally use him. Unfortunately, this season he's played a lot more. He started a lot more games. I don't think ideally when you draw up a plan against Spurs with their midfield of Dembele and Dyer or Wanyama if he plays, you're not going to play Tiny Conte and Fabregas who doesn't defend. That's pretty foolish. But who else are you going to play? Bakayoko has proven to not be as good as advertised just yet, and Drinkwater is Drinkwater. At that point, you might as well play Fabregas and take the bad with the potential good of quality passing and creating chances. And unfortunately, that latter bit didn't happen today. So all we got was the bad from Fabregas. But we should not be in a position. It's easy to blame Fabregas, but we know what he is. You can't expect him to be what he isn't. We need players to play instead of him, and not expect him to be to fill a role that he is basically incapable of. We know he's not capable of. That's partly why Conte experimented a lot with the 3-5-2 earlier this season, playing a three-man midfield with Conte and Bakayoko, ideally shielding for Fabregas and letting him create. We know that didn't necessarily work out as well as intended. We did have a couple good performances, including against Spurs, it should be noted, at Wembley. But, that one failed for other reasons. Morata's inconsistency, could say Hazard's inconsistency. He played really well at the start of the season after coming back from injury, but has had games such as today when he basically just kind of disappeared and idled along. Did a couple of flicks and tricks. I mean, today he looked pretty slow, of all things. So yeah. It is what it is. Conte was talking about before the game this weekend. He spent a fair amount of time talking about how this is what Chelsea are. Spurs have improved and they're ahead of us. We have young players, but they are not quite ready. Maybe they'll be ready in a few years, or maybe they'll grow into this the next title-winning squad. But right now, this is what we have, and the improvement that's needed is at the squad level. Whether it's regardless of who the manager is, you need a better squad. It's just what it is. Whether you do that through player acquisitions or giving the young players here the chance to grow into these supposedly really good players eventually, or you trust the players not in the squads, young players coming up, and giving them the chance, identifying the talent, bringing in managers who can build the next title winning side. Of course, that requires direction and effort and trust from the board as well. It's not easy. It's not easy, but there are no more quick fixes for Chelsea. This isn't 2000 whatever 3-4 where Abramovich would go out and buy the best players and give it to a manager who's good enough to create a cohesive side and say, here you go, win some titles. That's no longer the case. You could argue that it's not really the case for anybody, but certainly when you look at City's squad this season or Manchester United, there are teams who can still go that route. Doesn't necessarily guarantee success, and even City took several years to build to their current magnificent status. We'll see how they fare next season. It's when a team is as dominant as City are this season, it's easy to say there's a dynasty coming. But everybody said there was a dynasty coming in 2014-15 with Mourinho and Chelsea, and we saw how that turned out. Only the worst season in like 2 decades. Yeah. You guys keep talking about the board. Look at Liverpool. They're not buying big name players. The coach is doing his job. Too much excuses. Well, I don't know. Liverpool just spent a world record amount on a defender 2 months ago. So and they're going to spend. They got plenty of money from the Coutinho acquisition coming in. So Liverpool certainly are spending plenty of money. Maybe they're not buying the biggest name players, but Virgil van Dijk is a pretty big name player that they just acquired, and who's whatever that escapes my mind right now. But the midfielder coming in from Leipzig is no joke either. And that's good for them. That said, Liverpool haven't really won anything either in a really long time. So good for them for being an exciting side, but they're probably not finishing higher than third this season. So And they took this long for them just to get to this point. City are miles ahead. Yep, right now they are, but things can change pretty quickly. We are not good this season. Yeah, we're only fifth good, which is not very good really. It's nobody aspires to be fifth, not even Arsenal. Who would you pick to be the next manager if Conte is gone? Yeah, that's. I think that's going to be our big talking point for like the next 2 months. I don't know who I would personally pick. I think I'd stay with Conte. I know that's nobody's going to agree to that. I think Conte has good methods, and he's a good manager. Our head coach, the three main candidates that I've heard are Luis Enrique, Thomas Tuchel, and Maurizio Sarri. This is Maurizio Sarri? It's not Maurizio Sarri. Anyway, Napoli coach. Of those three, I think my pick would be the Napoli coach, Sarri. But that's fairly based on fairly limited information and knowledge of the situation. Luis Enrique is certainly somebody who's proven that he can win things, but he's only proven that with Barcelona. He did not have a very good record at Roma or at whatever the third team that he was managing in Spain was. And winning things with the best team in the world is it's one of those things that, is just how good are you? Obviously, a lot of people are saying that about Guardiola, and he's managed to continue to prove that when teams spend a lot of money for his players, he can certainly put together an amazing side and get them to play in an amazing way. It did take him a couple of years to get that into action at Manchester City. It's I always often wonder. City finished third last season. If that was Chelsea, would we be like, oh, that's fine. Here's more money to spend for you. Maybe we don't do that. So, but obviously, whatever Guardiola does does not really affect on Luis Enrique. And I'm sure he's a good enough manager. Whether he's a good enough coach, I'm not really sure. And I think the distinction is that because Chelsea cannot buy the best of the best, we need an actual coach, an actual head coach, not just a manager. The job of whoever comes in to lead the team isn't necessarily to just manage egos anymore. This isn't Carlo Ancelotti in 2009 to come in to a midfield of Lampard, Ballack, Essien, Makelele, and say, pick two or three of them, and then be able to manage the egos of the rest, and somehow make that all work and create an exciting side. This is a midfield of one amazing player who's possibly the best in the world, and then a really old Fabregas who is a very one-note player, Bakayoko who needs to do a lot of growing and improving, and Drinkwater who is basically just a backup and an average player. So you need somebody who actually can help those players improve and grow and improve and improve and improve some more. And I think that's why Conte, if somehow this works out, Conte staying would not be a disaster, because if there's one thing he has shown throughout his career, other than winning a lot of league titles, not so much knockout competitions, but league titles certainly, is that he can improve players. And there are several players in the squad who joined, even this, knowing the instability at the position, joined Chelsea to work with Conte and improve. And that includes N'Golo Conte himself, Zappacosta, Bakayoko, Morata, all these guys, specifically Rudiger, even all these guys specifically came out and said, we're excited to be at Chelsea because we get to work with Conte, who will improve you as a player. That doesn't necessarily guarantee success. Obviously, each player has his own limit. Just because you can improve doesn't mean you're going to be one of the best in the world. That's not really Conte's issue. That's it's player acquisitions, board, football, director of football, etc., etc. So what were we talking about? So basically, that's why I don't want Luis Enrique to be a Chelsea coach, the next Chelsea coach, because to me he has a reputation of being just a manager instead of a head coach. The other two guys, Tuchel and Sarri, have the reputation of being able to improve young players. Obviously, Tuchel, in his time at Dortmund, showed that with somebody like Christian Pulisic. great white American hope. Other young players that he brought through at Dortmund. I'm sure there are a few, but I can only remember, and I can only really care about Pulisic because if Tuchel somehow could convince Pulisic to come to Chelsea with him or to join him, that would be like automatic give the job to Tuchel. The problem with him is when you look at his history, especially at Dortmund, it basically reads as the Mourinho playbook or the Conte playbook even. He fell out with a couple players, including long-time established players at the club, and he butted heads with the board and the scouting team, and that's why he left. That's why he got sacked, even though Dortmund actually won the cup that season. So yeah, it's do we want a repeat of Mourinho Conte? Obviously, they both won the title, so maybe this isn't such a bad thing. But see you back here in a couple of years. This time with Tuchel, talking about how he's about to leave. Maybe you should try a German coach this time. Yeah, I mean that's Tuchel's got that going for him. When was the last time we had a German coach? Probably never. I'm trying to think. We've had plenty of Italian coaches, and that's where Sarri would come in. He's certainly the most experienced of the three candidates. He's worked his way slowly up through the ranks in Italy. I mean, the dude was managing, like third or fourth division teams a few years ago, or decades ago. But his reputation is even more so than Tuchel's is one of being able to work with the squad he's given and bring the most out of him. Everybody likes the style of football Napoli play these days. So he has people are predicting Conte getting sacked. Anyway, on Twitter, of course. So sorry, he's worked his way up, and he has this reputation of bringing the best out of players. But the knock against him is that he's never really done it at such a high level consistently. He's done it at Napoli for the last few years, but his resume is long, but not exactly all that impressive. So do we take that risk? Maybe this is his one shining moment with Napoli, and then he's gonna slink away to mediocrity and anonymity. But I think Sarri would be an interesting and bold choice, and I don't know. We've done all right with Italian managers, if that means anything really. But those are the three candidates I've heard of the most. I don't know. Tuchel supposedly rejected Bayern Munich because he has already agreed with the team. That could be Chelsea. It's unclear. The Bayern CEO actually confirmed this because they are trying to get Tuchel to be their permanent coach next season. So they're moving on to a different candidate, whoever that might be. And Tuchel might be coming to Chelsea. If he's not coming here, he might be going to Arsenal or PSG or whoever else might be looking for a coach this summer. But maybe it's Chelsea. And I mean, if Chelsea have agreed this already, there's once again absolutely no reason then to fire Conte in the middle of the season. Well, not middle, but while the season's still happening. At this point, there's no more damage to limit. It literally is the FA Cup is anything can happen in knockout games. There's no guarantee that a new coach would get Chelsea to play and win that thing. We have an easy path into the final through Southampton, and then whoever, either Spurs or United in the final, if we make it that far. But just getting a new coach in just for that, that doesn't guarantee. There's no way to guarantee that success. And as far as the league is concerned, if you don't finish top four, it really doesn't matter. We'll probably finish in Europa League places. Ariel says Tuchel at PSG. Is that confirmed? No, I don't think it is. The only thing that's confirmed is that Tuchel has agreed or has made a promise to a team. The words that the Bayern CEO used was has agreed with another team. So he's not going to Bayern. He's going somewhere else. He's definitely going somewhere. We just don't know where. Could be PSG, could be Chelsea, could be Arsenal. Although the way Arsenal are talking, or the way Wenger's talking, he's not going anywhere. So maybe not Arsenal. So maybe it's down to PSG and Chelsea. Who knows? I don't want Conte to leave, says Ariel, but you can see he's not into it anymore. Yeah, I think, Conte is perhaps a bit too much like a player in that way that he can't really put on the false facade. He's not, he's not going to spin, not going to play for the cameras. It's a disappointing season. I'm sure it is for him just as much as it is for us. People will be mad at Conte or whatever and say all these things about him. But, the man cares about winning. And he's certainly somebody with a lot of pride in what he does. And, I think, finishing 5th or 6th after, 4 consecutive league titles, and three with Juventus and then 1 with Chelsea. It's going to hurt. This is not the Conte way. And so, I think, he himself needs a little shot in the arm, perhaps. Whether that means a change of scenery, possibly. But I'm not so sure it's up to him anymore after the last couple months. Back in January when Chelsea were second and looking very good for the top 4 at the time, and we were just debating whether we were going to get past Barcelona or not. It's been a very bad few months, and I think that kind of seems to have sealed his fate. It's unfortunate, but managers come and managers go. The Chelsea win, says Troy, who's just enjoying himself in the comment sections. I celebrated so hard when Morata scored that I smashed my head through a window and went to the hospital. Aww. We all know that's not true, but it was nice to see Morata score. If we want to talk, positives. Back in the goals, first league goal since Boxing Day. So hey, hand his team over to Jody Morris. Tired of Conte's philosophy. Yeah, I think it could be an interesting appointment, but I think Jody Morris is busy with the under 18s. They have things to win too. You don't want to disrupt that, really, I'd say. But interim manager Jody Morris, that could be interesting. Jody Morris. I just hope it won't be somebody like Andres Villas-Boas. In that case, I wish Conte would stay, says Ernest. Yeah, I think there is there's a high chance that it's going to be somebody like Andre Villas-Boas, because we're very much in that situation, but like frame of mind as with Ancelotti in 2011, where it's a squad that won the league pretty impressively the previous season, and then just didn't quite work out for it the next season. Chelsea started okay, and then Ancelotti had his big bad moment through the winter. Well, here we are in Conte's big bad moment. There's no recovery from it this time. Even though Ancelotti finished second, the writing was on that wall certainly, and whatever place Conte finishes, the writing is on this wall too. The problem is that now we're this place where suddenly we have this project again. If you remember when AVB came in, and everything was about the project. The project. We're going to rebuild Chelsea and get the young players in. We played Oriol Romeu a lot. That was exciting. He even gave Josh McEachran a couple games. So I could definitely see Chelsea try to go this project route. Get a younger coach who, as long as he buys into the new team philosophy, possibly works out. But then, we saw with AVB that even though he had this great plan and great project and was trying to play the right way, push high, attacking football, all this, not everything the exact opposite of, what Chelsea were known for over the previous decade. It didn't quite work out for him. So, it worked out for Chelsea in the end, obviously, with the Champions League title, but it didn't really work out for AVB. And I would prefer not to go through a similar season. I think is Tuchel somebody like Villas-Boas? I could kind of see that. Both kind of hyped in the football world these days. AVB at least won the Europa League or whatever it was at the time, whatever it was called at the time. So yeah. I don't know. You kind of, if we're looking to engineer a long-term change, you almost kind of have to get the younger coach in, somebody like AVB or the AVB type. AVB obviously is already retired from football and he's like doing car racing or some nonsense. But you possibly need a younger coach to build with, or we continue getting coaches in for a year or two, seeing what they do, getting the next one. Certainly you don't expect, if that's the case, don't expect any coach to be signed for more than 2-3 years at a time. And maybe that's the way to go, Sean Paul says he ain't busy. Are we still talking about Jody Morris? Jody Morris is busy. You gotta coach the youth team. Come on, man. It's only so many hours in a day. Remember when we won the league? That was so cool. Wasn't it though? It was less than 12 months ago. Marco Silva. Yeah, I think Marco Silva would certainly be the more AVB type appointment, and not just because of the whole, Portuguese connection. I think Marco Silva did his reputation great harm when he did this whole, Everton's, Watford, Everton, courting was it? He tried to engineer himself a move, and that kind of didn't really work out for him. And then Watford's season took a turn for the way worse. So I think if we're talking last summer, Marco Silva would have been pretty high on probably anyone's list. Don't think he's very high on anybody's list these days. It's how things can change that quickly in football. I don't know who Chelsea might be looking at. People always say the more coaches we fire, the fewer options we will have. But really, who is out there who's not already tied down? Other than Guardiola, is there any obvious top manager who everybody can agree on is doing an amazing job somewhere? Maybe Heinkes at Bayern, but he only came out of retirement to take over there for Ancelotti. So it's maybe Chelsea can find somebody I think Conte kind of came out of nowhere. At least for me, he did. It was not really an expected appointment. At least certainly not when the manager search began. When we sacked Mourinho in 2016, everybody was like, "Oh no, or was it? I guess it's still 2015 December. But everybody was, well, who are we gonna hire now? Oh my God, is Ancelotti gonna come back? We're out of coaches to hire, and then we found this amazing coach in Italy, and he did all right. So I'm sure there's plenty of good candidates to come in and give it to Giggs at the end of the season. Don't make me ban you, Troy Downs. Don't make me ban you. Let's steal Pochettino, says Abby. Yeah, that was a story in the Telegraph just before the game. But it said that we have a very, very low chance of getting Pochettino, especially if we don't beat Spurs, which we didn't. Lest we forget, 3-1. The only coach we're going to get is Jardim. Hardim? I don't even know how to say his name. The former Monaco coach. Well, he's certainly known to be an idealistic attacking coach, and I'm sure that'll work out just fine. Bring on Roberto Di Matteo. Well, Di Matteo has been back at Chelsea anyway because he's preparing for that Legends game at the end of the season. So, I mean, if we're looking for interim managers, there's a basket full of them, an Easter basket full of them at Cobham these days with Zola and Di Matteo and Dennis Wise and Toriander Flo. Good Johnston, I think, was there too. They're all training for the Legends game against Inter at the end of the season. So maybe while they're training and getting back into shape, they can take over the team for a while. There you go. Robbie D it is. FA Cup and Champions League double winner Robbie Di Matteo to guide Chelsea to another FA Cup title. Works for me, I'd say, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think Conte is going anywhere at this point. As I was saying, the damage has been done. I kind of said the same thing with actually, speaking of AVB, when he got sacked, I was kind of like, why are we doing this? He's already done the damage. This is not going to get any better. But Di Matteo pulled off the miracle of winning the Champions League. Unfortunately, that possibility doesn't exist this season anymore. So sacking Conte really, it might cost you the FA Cup. It might not. There's no guarantee. And, I don't know, is the FA Cup going to make us happy? Would it make us happy at the end of the season? Not sure. Alright. I think that's all I got. This is 60 minutes, well, not even 55 minutes into this live stream. This is about the time that Chelsea gave up too. So seems about right to call it a day and walk on home and give a couple goals up to Dele Alli. Next up, Dele Alli. No, sadly, that's not the case. Next up is nothing. Zola. Anshai says, give 3 months to each. Is there a thing like a 3-month contract? Don't think there is, but we can sign him to a single-year contract and then just sack him 3 months later. Or maybe we'll do like a three in a box. Give the job to Zola, Di Matteo, and Wise. Have 3 managers, and that way you can fire one of them when somebody goes wrong. I think the post-mortem and the soul-searching has only begun. I think it's going to be, once again, never a boring day at Chelsea. It's going to be a very interesting summer once again. And could have long-term repercussions of how well we respond to this latest crisis. How will we build from this hole? What happens with the stadium? Abramovich got his own little legal issues too, so yeah. Stay tuned. Stay strong. Chelsea lose today, but life goes on. Next up for us, at least as far as a confirmed fixture, is next weekend, Sunday, against West Ham United. Another London derby. Maybe we'll win this time. Yeah. Chelsea sit 8 points behind Spurs for 4th place. So we can probably kiss that goodbye. There are 7 games left this season, plus at least 1 in the FA Cup. So that will be something to look forward to. And eventually the season will end. And then hope will begin anew next season. Yeah. Anyway, if you watched any part of this or all of this, I thank you a lot. I'm back from vacation, so these videos will once again be somewhat regular. We'll certainly look to do one next weekend after West Ham United. There's a game against Huddersfield that needs to be rescheduled for some point, but obviously that's not going to be rescheduled this week. So we'll see you next Sunday after the West Ham game. Hopefully we'll all be in a better mood. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check the website, etc., for all more lovely content of the best team in the world. We're always the best, right? Alright. Bye. Uh-oh. I have to confirm the